My boyfriend, during our short breakup, slept with another girl, then started threatening me. For the past year and 3 months, I, a 20-year-old woman, have been in a relationship with a man named Alex, aged 25. Our serendipitous encounter took place at the library, unfolding like a scene from a romantic comedy. Initially, our interactions were mere exchanged glances during 2 prior encounters. My shyness hindered any conversation. However, on the 3rd occasion, fate intervened as he picked up a book I adore. Commending his choice, I voiced my approval, receiving concurrence from a librarian, a woman in her mid-40s. Exiting the library, he sought my social media details. I mentioned having Instagram, a dormant Facebook account, and TikTok. Though initially silent, I eventually responded to a humorous meme he posted, kickstarting our dialogue. Subsequently, he messaged expressing his appreciation for the book, leading to prolonged texting conversations. Gradually, he proposed hanging out casually, which evolved into several non-date meetups, typically strolling around the city or sharing coffee. Being inclined to please others, I acquiesced when he indirectly proposed dining at an upscale restaurant, despite my concerns about the strain on my finances. Surprisingly, he graciously covered the expense, sparing my bank account from any impact. I reassured him that it wasn't necessary, but as our conversations deepened and his gentlemanly demeanor persisted, I found myself developing a crush on him. A week later, he asked me out on another date. During our second outing, he confessed his feelings for me, sparking the beginning of our relationship. As we started dating, I introduced him to my family, who initially held reservations about him, contrasting with the immediate warmth his family showed me. Our journey together had its share of minor disagreements, but one incident escalated, leaving him anxious about a potential breakup. He arrived at my place inebriated, a moment thankfully concealed from my working parents, who might have formed a negative opinion of him. We reconciled, overcoming the rift. Around 4 months into our relationship, I realized I was spending an excessive amount of time at his apartment, almost living there. After discussing it, he proposed that I move in, as the place was a gift from his parents. Despite my parents' reservations, I made the decision as an adult. Following this, we began our intimate life, with him being my first. Initially patient, he later showed frustration when I wasn't in the mood, though he never pressured me. Our conflicts extended beyond just this issue. However, our attachment to each other became overwhelming, suffocating me, yet now I find myself missing it. Interestingly, I noticed a correlation between our frequency of intimacy and the decrease in our conflicts, particularly during my ovulation week, which seemed to ignite passion. Hence, we made adjustments, engaging more frequently except during my period. This change notably reduced our fights, even during times not directly related to intimacy. 2 months after celebrating our 1-year anniversary, I found myself engrossed in exam preparations, inadvertently neglecting my relationship. This led to a significant altercation between us, escalating to the point where he presented me with an ultimatum: prioritize him or my studies. Feeling suffocated by his demands, I expressed the need for a break. Tears streamed down both our faces as I clarified that it wasn't a breakup, just a temporary respite. He pleaded with me, making me promise not to engage with other men or be intimate with anyone during this time. As my parents had grown fond of him, I refrained from disclosing our break and instead conveyed to them that I missed them. A day prior to an important exam, mutual friends invited us to a party. Nobody knew about our break. While he attended, I devoted my time to studying, yet a nagging feeling persisted. Always trust your instincts. The following day, against the backdrop of our no-contact pact, I initiated a conversation, inquiring about the exams. His response seemed peculiar, implying he would have preferred my presence at the party. This sentiment prompted me to return to his place. Unbeknownst to his verbal assurance of our break, I discovered he attended the party despite our agreement. A month later, an untimely notification from his phone disrupted my sleep at 3 a.m. While he slumbered peacefully, curiosity piqued my interest. Despite his reluctance to share his phone, even though he occasionally peruses mine and has access to my passwords, I attempted to unlock it. A message from a girl, resembling me but slimmer and seemingly prettier, declaring a possible pregnancy, appeared on his screen. Determined to uncover the truth, I braved unlocking his phone, delving into their conversations. The revelations left me utterly flabbergasted. Her initial message to him was shocking, asking about pulling out, and his response raised immediate concern with his surprise about how she obtained his number. The ensuing conversation unfolded with unsettling details. He seemingly forgot giving her his number and, more disturbingly, discussed assumptions about contraceptive use in their sexual encounters. This revelation left me reeling in disgust and sorrow, tears streaming down my face as I processed the betrayal. My emotional turmoil awoke him, and upon discovering me reading their exchange, he became defensive. Demanding answers, I confronted him, prompting a confession. He admitted to missing me, consuming excessive alcohol, and engaging in unprotected intimacy with a girl who resembled me. His explanation veered into blaming the seduction by this girl who resembled me, but the outcome remained the same. They had sex without protection. Initially, he attempted apologies, claiming he was consumed by thoughts of me, but my anger overwhelmed any semblance of forgiveness. His demeanor shifted, becoming defensive, and he used our break as a justification for his actions. Feeling utterly betrayed and unsure of how to navigate this situation, I am left grappling with feelings of being cheated on, unsure of what steps to take or how to process this breach of trust. Interesting update. Typically, when tensions rose between us, he'd take a walk, and with our shared location, I could track his whereabouts. Opting for a mature face-to-face discussion rather than resolving things via text, I waited for him to return, planning to address our issues. Little did I anticipate the turmoil that awaited. Had I known, I'd have headed straight to my parents' house. The moment he spotted my packed luggage upon his return, his reaction was visceral. His aggressive tone questioned my departure, but I stood firm, declaring the end of our relationship, tired of ignoring the glaring warning signs. His response was dismissive, almost mocking my decision. I cited his controlling behavior as a significant issue, but he waved it off, adamantly denying any breakup. As I attempted to articulate my grievances, he resorted to name-calling, labeling me as crazy for bringing up concerns. I challenged him, suggesting he seek someone more normal if I seemed erratic to him. He rebuffed, claiming he only desired me, yet I couldn't endure this any longer. His anger escalated rapidly, transitioning from defensive yelling to a sudden, tight grip on my wrist, a behavior entirely foreign to our past conflicts. Struggling to contain my emotions, I trembled, tears streaming down my face. Begging to be released, I was met with defiance and an unexpected turn. He struck me. Despite witnessing his penchant for aggressive outbursts directed at walls or objects, I never fathomed he'd direct that rage towards me. Shaken and in tears, I was unable to comprehend his continued shouting. When he finally released his grip, commanding me to return to our room, I refused, sensing a foreboding intensity in his gaze. Instinctively, I sought refuge, fleeing to the bathroom, locking the door, grateful for that small barrier of safety. Frantically locking the door, I found myself inundated with his vehement demands to unlock it. Amidst tears, a fortuitous vibration from my phone nestled in my pocket provided a glimmer of hope. Stealthily, I contemplated calling either the authorities or my parents, but revealing the presence of my phone to him was a risk I couldn't take. Opting for a text, a plea to my parents for rescue from Alex's apartment felt like the only lifeline. This wasn't my usual approach. Previously, during our break, I managed to return home solo by bus. However, this time, I felt utterly trapped. My father's call was my lifeline, but I answered in hushed tones, concealing any indication of conversation from Alex, wary that it might escalate his aggression. Through the phone, my parents heard his tirade and my distress. The doorbell rang after about 15 agonizing minutes, prompting an abrupt cessation of his yelling. His ominous warning about the neighborhood hearing him terrified me. When Alex opened the door, he was met by the sight of my parents. Moments later, the doorbell's echo faded into my mother's reassuring presence. Hastening to her, tears flowing unabated, I sought solace in her embrace, apologizing profusely. She comforted me, assuring that we were going home. In the living room, my father confronted Alex, his anger palpable. My attempts to intervene were halted by my mother's conviction that he deserved repercussions for his actions. As unsettling as the scene was, the relief of being safely embraced by my parents eclipsed the chaos that had transpired moments before. As we sat in the car, awaiting my father's return, my parents sought an explanation for the ordeal. Through tearful recounting, I divulged the chaotic state of our relationship. My father's reaction teetered on an edge, a visceral response hinting at a desire for vengeance. Distraught, I acknowledged the possibility of my faults but maintained that I didn't deserve the torment I endured. My mother, however, reassured me, asserting that my expectations of fidelity were justified and that genuine love wouldn't have allowed such betrayal. Throughout the day, they provided unwavering comfort, although I couldn't shake the guilt of burdening them with my troubles. Meanwhile, messages from Alex's parents arrived. Knowing it was essential to relay the truth, I divulged the events. His mother expressed regret, attributing his behavior to his father and expressing her shame. Conversely, his father chose to defend him. Simultaneously, my ex inundated my phone with a barrage of messages vacillating between apologies, blame, excuses, and then remorse, culminating in the unsettling act of sending images of his self-inflicted bruises, claiming he deserved them. The urgency to block him intensified, yet I grappled with the inability to confide in my parents about these distressing messages. I find myself reminiscing about the initial sweetness and care he showered upon me when our relationship began. He treated me like royalty, lavishing me with expensive gifts, makeup, jewelry, and more. The stark contrast with my parents' middle-class lifestyle made me feel guilty, especially considering his lucrative job in IT. Just 2 months into our relationship, I quit my job due to unfair treatment, working extra hours without compensation while witnessing others receive more pay for less effort. During that early phase, he expressed love and a desire to marry me, despite my feelings not yet aligning at that depth. Gradually, the lavish treatment waned, replaced by his dissatisfaction with what he perceived as my inadequate reciprocity. Feeling weighed down by his expectations, I assured him of my efforts, only to be met with discontent. His complaints centered around his spending on me, contrasting it with what he perceived as minimal gestures from my end. Despite genuinely trying to match his generosity within my means, his perspective was unyielding. Reflecting on it now, I realize I was being love-bombed, caught up in a whirlwind of affection and grand gestures that concealed underlying issues. I reproach myself for not recognizing this earlier and wonder why I didn't end things sooner. Despite being just 20, I feel as though my world has come crashing down, uncertain about how to move forward from this chapter in my life. Let's get 1,000 subscribers on this channel. Love you.